Welcome back to Mega Talks. I'm Christopher Thompson, and I just want to remind everybody that you can listen to the podcast on Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search out the word The Mega Talks Podcast, and you'll see us come up. Now, this episode, I'll be speaking with Brian Wilson. He's co-owner of Forza Martial Arts in Russellville, Arkansas. He also hosts a podcast called Life Unraveled, sometimes MMA Unraveled or Music Unraveled. But you can catch that podcast. I'll put some links in the show notes. And let's get into the interview with Brian Wilson. This is episode 12. All right, I'm CT. Here on the Mega Talks podcast, I'm talking to one of my good friends and coach for Jiu-Jitsu. And some of you guys know him. If you don't, you're going to know him today. His name is Brian Wilson. He's owner of Forza Martial Arts in Russellville, Arkansas. He also has his own podcast, Life Unraveled, MMA Unraveled, Music Unraveled. The list goes on. And he's just a few episodes deep, probably 10 to 15 or more, and working on putting more in the bag. But he's here with us today. We're going to get to know him. Of course, I already know him. So, what's going on, Brian?
Hey, man. Thanks for the introduction. Not a whole lot. I'm sitting around my studio. I've been working on some things for the podcast a little bit this morning, and just some projects I've got going on. I've been teaching a history class at the university down the road. So that's been keeping me busy on top of just, running the gym. So
great.
Just, kind of playing, taking it a little easy today, but playing a little bit of catch up in other areas.
Mm-hmm. And just recently, I was a guest on Brian's podcast, Life Unraveled. And just to ask you, podcasting and, how does that intertwine with martial arts? Where did you get the inspiration for a podcast?
Well, a few things. I'm a martial artist, but that's what I do all day, every day. So in a very big sense, living the martial arts lifestyle. I've owned a school since 2012. And my wife and I, just both our full-time jobs. I teach, like I said, a little history class on the side. But, I'm pretty into just rolling with ideas. And I was wanting to start a podcast for over a year and just started looking at how to do it. And, put my studio together over a few months. And now I'm about 25 episodes in. I just like building brands up too. I built our martial arts and our fitness brand up, and it's a fun part of what we do. I like coming up with gi designs and t-shirt ideas and rash guard ideas, or having my people help me come up with ideas. As we ask a lot of times our folks at the gym, we ask them what they're into, and try and come up with something accordingly. But then the podcast is super, super fun. Really, anybody that knows me probably knows I love to chat about things I'm passionate about. So that's kind of where that came from.
Uh-huh. And, you started the podcast how long ago?
Well, we started December, right after Christmas. I had my first guest on, and that's my first. And I'm doing audio and video.
Okay.
So it hadn't been rolling very long.
But you've had the gym Forza open for how many years has it been now?
So 2012. So what is that? We're going on our 6th year. And then, fortunately, when we opened, I had close to 40 students already.
Yeah.
It was like running a program. It's like sharing a space and rent with a different gym. Mm-hmm. And then we went out on our own in March of 2012, and that was in our first location. And then we ended up moving to that was just sort of older, kind of off at the edge of town, like an older building, had like a super ghetto furnace, and we fixed it up and got in there and did our thing, and then we ended up moving to a retail space, and really wasn't, we'd probably been in our first location 16 months or something. and we couldn't park enough cars by that time. That was the biggest issue. So like the retail space had a big parking area, and then now for probably a year and a half, we've been in our new location, which we bought a building, we remodeled it. We're about to reseal the roof on it, and then it'll be pretty much totally remodeled. Like we sprayed the whole ceiling black, like when we went in. It's like an old warehouse, and we refinished the entire inside. We did the floors. I mean, everything is like new, so to speak, inside and out. But we're still working on some things. I just got new mats a few months ago. Like we're always upgrading the facility and growing and trying to keep the parking lot situation under control. And I mean, there's a lot of people in there at once. We have
a lot of people in and out
at once. Our evening schedule stays just super stacked.
Yeah, and now as anything goes, as far as podcasting and owning a gym, you know, there's fun things and there's not so fun things. What are some of the challenges that came up with the gym and some of the challenges that you met with, creating the podcast?
The podcast was mostly, I would say, just figuring out all these little things. Like I was talking about my podcast recently about how I had to come up with a stereo to mono cable. Like I didn't know that's what I needed when I'm running from like my TV into my headphone amp, or when I'm running from what else did I end up needing that for? Oh, from that mixer to the headphone amp. So like we had it where it is you're only getting audio in one ear. And just kind of like, it's like I haven't done a whole lot of recording. I played music for several years.
Yeah.
And, I was, that's been probably the coolest part is figuring out how to do it and then kind of evolving it. Like I've got a lot of ideas and ways I'm going to integrate. I'm about to start doing clips. I've got enough episodes now that I'm going to start pulling some just best of clips, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I'm going to think of a catch your name. Yeah, I've had like 3 different guests do like a reading, like either like a spoken word piece by like Patterson Hood by Drive By Truckers about ironically George Wallace, who I've been listening to LBJ tapes on, George Wallace, Alabama. So, but just being able to have an outlet to roll. It's like I'm doing a History Unraveled. So it's like Life Unraveled is this guest when we talk about everything,
Yeah.
But I'm doing a Music Unraveled with several different friends come over, and we just talk about either concerts we went to or bands that we're into or albums that we're into or just came out. So it's just kind of like a review of that. I do the same thing for like movies and TV. I have a little playlist I do with that. So, if you go to the channel, you can look at the different playlists. There's 5 of them. But Life Unraveled, I think I've done 11 of those so far. And I've done a few solo podcasts too.
Oh, yeah?
I just put one out where I was in the CVO and on Fight Pass and just like and YouTube watching BJ Penn's last 10 fights.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, no, it wasn't. It was depressing.
Was it?
But yeah. I mean, he's 2-7-1.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's just when you get interested in things, it's nice to have an outlet to sit down and have a conversation about. And like I'm gonna definitely segue some of my studio setup into like some online stuff I'm doing for teaching history courses and. I'm hoping that I teach an online course next semester. I'm teaching just face-to-face right now. So,
now,
but go ahead.
Oh, going along, you were teaching some history and things like that. Something I really didn't know, when we were training and things like that, is that you were a history major, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I got my undergraduate degree in history and political science, a minor in philosophy, and worked at the university there for the history department pretty much the whole time I got to college when I was 23.
Yeah, because I remember at the camps you would do a history about martial arts and talk about those types of things.
Yeah. I wrote my master's thesis on martial arts and as in the reinvention of tradition.
Mm-hmm.
But I used some different styles that I discussed because I really like chapter one. Kind of is all about Japanese martial arts and sort of the social and political and economic and just the whole zeitgeist of Japan, and that leads to this sort of 2000 jiu-jitsu style situation that you see in the 1800s. So, which leads to jiu-jitsu being reinvented as judo, which leads to judo being reinvented as Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which leads to judo being reinvented as sambo, and then also these purposes being used to promote nationalism. That's another major focus. It's like I'm fascinated by. I want to do a big run on my podcast about martial arts and Olympic sport, and then Olympic sport is a form of nationalism. War without weapons.
Now, going back to, of course, jiu-jitsu, Japanese, correct?
Yes.
And as far as like traditional martial arts, what's the difference between like a Japanese traditional jiu-jitsu versus what you see in America today? And I'm more or less referring to like the kind of like the lifestyle of, maybe coming into the gym and bowing and, little ceremonial type of things that relate. That's
I'll tell you what I know. And I mean, what I know is based off of a lot of research in writing a master's thesis on it, which I, defended in front of a committee of professors and distinguished professors, deans, and so on. But, so it was, Japan didn't have a lot of contact with the outside world during its like feudal era. So you had this sort of and there's other systems all over the world that are doing similar martial arts at the same time and before. That's one thing that like a lot of people just need to realize. One thing I tell everybody up front is like, I work as a historian partially right now. But a lot of martial arts practitioners that write books and things of that nature and put out publications, articles, they're biased practitioners. Yes, I practice martial arts, but I'm trained as a historian. You usually don't have part two on everybody that's putting out material. Unfortunately, I had a mentor and a guy I worked with for my master's thesis, and brought in as an undergrad named Dennis Gainty, who passed away, and he was one of the only martial arts historians in the world. It's not a wide array of people out there studying this topic. That's why I was interested in it. Like anytime you break into history, you want to have sort of a niche that you get to roll with.
Yeah, good.
And but Japanese jiu-jitsu, it kind of, a lot of people associate it with samurai, and yes, it's a little bit, you have a similar sort of setup where it's like largely family based. You have a lot of, and that's what creates all these different styles. Like, because if you look at how feudal Japan was laid out with, we'll just say, your shogun and your lords and your nobles and on down the line to peasants.
And those are like a ranking structure, right?
Yeah, really. So, like, if you had like a guy, it's like, let's just say, and I'm just going to put this in lay terms, you have like a super wealthy sort of lord of the area, and he has like the biggest palace or castle, and he has so many villages in his domain, and so many little towns, and there's all of these people in his conscript army, and those would be your samurai. And typically those people and their families are largely what are doing these jiu-jitsu traditions. But I'm pretty sure that my master's thesis is online. It's called Martial Arts and the Reinvention of Tradition. Chapter 1, I focus on just a wide array of martial arts traditions in Japan, because in the 20th century, my big stick is you see all of this stuff reinvented is these other things, starting with judo in Japan. But then you see other people reinventing Japanese martial arts, and that's different than what I was saying about Japan had no outside contact, people were doing other styles that might be reminiscent, but there's not a whole lot of people coming to Japan
pure art.
and then learning jiu-jitsu style and then going back to Europe or elsewhere and teaching it to people. Like, that doesn't really go on. And like, if you think about it, like, if you were to travel to Brazil for, like, I know people that do this, and they travel to Brazil for like a week and they come back and they're like the same type of player.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, or like a white belt comes back and they still are a super new white belt, you know? And it's like, so even if you did have some, you know, let's say monks or something coming over, Jesuits, missionaries, whoever coming over in training, it's like, let's say they trained all day, every day for 2 weeks, worth of training. I don't know. They trained a lot. I don't think that they're gonna, you know, unless they're already trained. I mean, that's just it. It's just, I think it depends on who too. It's like who you're training with, how influential is their style. And I think all the Japanese jiu-jitsu styles are just like how we perceive BJJ styles today. We're like, well, these people are like the Donna Herdez squad. They have really sick leg locks, or you know, like a lot of the Nova Uniao guys that we came up training with were sick at spider guard.
Oh yeah,
you know. It's just like every, Jack was talking to me recently. I had Jack Toffer on my podcast, and he came in for a seminar. This guy trains with Hickson quite a bit. He's like, hey, you know, you go against Gracie Baja guys, like in the tournament, they're going to play like, they're going to do this technique to try. And he was talking about how they posture and guard.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has a different flavor. You know, sometimes people are guard pullers. Sometimes people are takedown artists. And, or wrestled in high school or college, and then they start doing jiu-jitsu. And that's the cool part, I think, about how evolved jiu-jitsu is today, in philosophy, whether it's evolved in that way in the execution or practice of academies, is that it allows for so much, you know?
Yeah, I think sometimes, you know, at least here in America, when people are just experimenting with martial arts and trying, you know, new martial art, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu is up there, you know, at the top of the heap for most people.
It's true. It's truly unique, man. And like, that's why I love tracing the roots to it, to find out. And it's just, it's refinement, you know?
And I think some people actually think when they see that the art of jiu-jitsu was actually originated in Brazil as opposed to like Japan.
Yes. See, like, I mean, that's, you know, and I'm not really trying to educate everybody on this stuff. It's a labor of love for me. I mean, I'm not putting out a bunch of publications about martial arts history or anything right now. It's just a sub, you know, and I would love to teach a class on it someday. And if I do, I will probably, I mean, that's another thing, like, about the podcast. Like, I'm able to just, like, when I get excited, inspired about things, I get to capture it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I enjoy probably the most, just kind of building my archive and figuring out how to do. You're
building not only a diary for yourself, but other people too, and giving them a voice.
Yeah, you know, and I thought about even doing, like, one thing that I just got Nick, my graphic designer, just did the artwork for me. We're going to start a vlog. I'm kind of getting out of blogging. Like, if I do anything, it'll be I'll write articles for other publications, versus being my own publication. Yeah. So I may repackage some of the articles or blogs I've written previously and send those out to maybe Jiu-Jitsu Times or something. But
okay.
Yeah, I just, man, I you know, blogging works for you know, if you want to do social media and you want to market, boost that post and put the blog post and you drive traffic, but it's, I'm just, I don't know. I can so much more with more ease do a podcast or a vlog or a video on my phone, on my iPad, on my Sony camcorder over here. And get that out. Flavor. Yeah, man. And I don't have to have a go-between. Here's what I'm trying to omit is having a go-between of like, that's what I was saying, man. I get excited about something. I want to put that out there right then.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to wait. I don't want to like have to give it to a web person and then 6 weeks later they put it out when we're working on different stuff, you know? So that's been a big challenge. And what I love about, just like you were talking about the gym or the podcast, it's the same thing. It's just figuring out how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Some people do not figure out how to do things, and they can get this like little flat spot. But I'm always trying to refine just processes, and then just like the overall core business model and structure has always been the same for the most part. We can always run more efficiently. It can always be better. We can always do a better job. And that's just one thing that anymore, it's just very small incremental change. It's like a jiu-jitsu game. You just want to change.
Yeah.
You want to be a little better tomorrow than you were today. And that's how I approach my business. That's how I approach everything I'm doing. And I used to not look at things that way. I would just be like, like I reset my YouTube a few times just because like we would move locations and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I think that, seeing the evolution of a product or a brand is important. Like when I look back and see Kurt Osiander's first, move of the week,
Uh-huh.
and then I watch this one, I'm like, well, he's really evolved as a practitioner, as a communicator, as a brand.
Comfortable being in front of the camera too.
And he's got all these sponsors, and he used to be nothing.
Yeah.
The same thing with Joe Rogan, I mean, it's awesome to see how his podcast is just like, it's one of the most popular things in the world.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it really is. I
remember him back from Ustream when the internet, when I was first getting into the internet.
Real quick, I am so glad that he evolved his brand. Because I was watching the very first Maynard episode when he was on Joe Rogan, like episode 250.
Oh,
and it was a
Maynard
super
James Keenan?
crappy. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Which I'm not, and I think I actually said the wrong date on my podcast, but May 26th, I think I said April 26th, May 26th, I think I'm going to be able to go see a Perfect Circle play in Dallas.
Oh, really? That's good.
I was just confirming it before we got on the phone. So I saw Tool last year, and I was like, nah, I wasn't super excited about it. Perfect Circle, like that's a big album, though.
Uh-huh.
And but I will say their drummer had a staph infection when I saw him play.
Oh yeah.
And we were just like next to some people that weren't,
no, it's too spiffy.
Nice to be next to, yeah, which never happens, honestly.
Were you on the floor?
No, we had seating.
Okay.
Yeah, and I tried to get tickets to like a couple other Tool concerts when they first started playing some shows, like a year and a half earlier or something, and I wasn't like the Box Center in Tulsa sold out. I wasn't able to get any, and like this sold out immediately. But that's another thing. So like I'm telling you, I'm going to see a Perfect Circle. I'm going to go see Dave Matthews, and we're also going to go see the Dead and Company. It's looking like in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not super excited about this, but John Mayer is actually playing Jerry Garcia's part with him on tour.
Oh yeah, you're excited about it or not? Not a John Mayer fan?
No, not really. I mean, he's talented. I don't know.
He's a little bit popish, but I mean, he does his art well.
Yeah, he's super talented.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to take anything away from him. He's classically trained too, so dude's legit. And he does kill it on the instrumental part. I don't really like his voice that much with this variation of the Dead that they're doing. But it'd be great to go see him. I got to go see Roger Waters twice last year. It was amazing. It's to see a part of history. So like Bob Weir, while he's still alive, is it'd be great to go see him. And I saw it's looking like that's what we're going to do in July. So
do you know who Bonamassa is?
Dude, I saw Joe Bonamassa like 6 weeks ago, bro.
Where?
Verizon, man. It was so sick,
okay.
Dude. So sick. Oh my gosh.
That's
cool.
You know who he reminds me of? Wait, he's always reminded me of like John Mayer, except like the mean side of him. Like a flip person, like I don't know, like the devil side of John Mayer. When I first saw him and heard him play, I'm like, man, he kind of reminds me of, the way he holds his guitar.
Maybe John Mayer is the douchey Red Devil, and Joe Bonamassa is like Jesus Christ. I don't know. But Joe Bonamassa is so legit, dude. I love it. Like, my buddy Colby is who I went with, and Robert actually went with us too. He was on my podcast a couple of times, Robert Wigner.
Yeah.
And, dude, we just swept in, sat down a couple of hours, and it just blew me away. Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah, that dude's he's awesome.
He's on tour right now, and like pretty much, I think the set that we saw is what he's playing. There's a live show out there. I wish I could tell you what video to find on YouTube.
Oh man, I've gone to YouTube and watched some of his shows, and all of his live stuff. You know, I'll catch on there, but some of his recordings or something, I would rather see him.
He has a great Facebook presence. Dude, he is always popping up in my Facebook feed, just shredding my face. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But years ago, it's been, I don't know. It's been a while since I've attended like a concert or something, like an indoor concert or anybody that I've really
start going
followed.
Again, bro. Because it keeps me.
Issue.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, you know, like I love the amp.
Yeah.
Like I really like outdoor concerts a lot, and then like being able to post up on the lawn to where it's not, you know. But like these, like even on the Bonamassa show, it's like we were sitting. Like anymore, dude, you're not gonna see me down in the mosh pit. Like what?
Yeah, I stopped going on the floor a few years ago.
Yeah, you know, me too. And like, I just try and get a really good seat, or I try and get on the lawn. Man, I've seen Widespread Panic from the lawn twice at the amphitheater in Rogers, and was just losing it. There's a video of them playing Machine and Barstools and Dreamers on YouTube from the Amp and Rogers on their page.
Huh.
And that's I love seeing when bands do that, like Bonamassa and Panic and all these bands that like really crossed over into the digital side, not just on like your Spotify, but like have a major YouTube presence, and that's part of the podcasting too, man. Is like
because people don't see that now.
Figuring out where your audience is and where you want to put your podcast. You can't put it everywhere, you know.
And I think now, anyway. And I think some of it has to do with social media, because if there's a big concert like Guns N' Roses or somebody comes through, somebody on the social media is going to be sharing a live video. You know, if I can't make it.
Well, yeah. You know, I think it has to do like hot topic issues. Like, I don't know if I mentioned this, but like I did a podcast with where we just like there was a Hickson seminar that got posted last week.
Yeah,
so we just like put up. So, like, I mean, I've been getting decent views, like, over the time of, like, the podcast being up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I did one over the Hickson seminar, like, as it, like the day that they put it up.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I threw that up on YouTube, and I've already got, like, 200 views. That hadn't even been up a week.
Oh, yeah.
Which is super mediocre. Like, Joe Rogan, he's built his audience up to where he gets, you know, maybe 500,000 average live viewers.
Yeah.
On like YouTube.
I remember seeing I saw the Hickson, the little, the screenshot or whatever on YouTube, and I was like, man, that's going to be good to watch, you know. But I was just, you know, scrolling through, and later that's what I'm going to
do the vlogs over, man, for the gym. Is I'm going to vlog what it was like training with Hickson, what it was like training with Jack, what it was like, you know, what it's like being a school, like just little things like that. It's like, man, I can get it out. I feel like I'm a good communicator. I can, you know, and I feel like it's around a topic that I plan for. I mean, it's like I'm just like anyone else. I can be disorganized or get off topic, but I don't even sweat it anymore. Like, I don't feel like people disenjoy having conversation with me. I've been really enjoying having people on the show in my studio. And, you know, you get better at doing it. Yeah, you get way better at doing it as time goes on. You know, I'm trying to get 100 episodes in this year. Shoot. And that's just like my main goal.
That's a lot of talking.
I'm 23 episodes in right now, you know, and we're in middle of February. So.
Yeah, I was going back to the Hickson thing. That was the Hickson I saw. I noticed later that there was 2 Hickson videos, and I was like, how are there 2 Hickson videos on here? And one was your podcast, and the other one was his.
Cool.
Because when I clicked on it, I thought I was clicking on the seminar.
Jack was just having lunch with Hickson like 2 days before he came out, and that we're able to take advantage of. I mean, like Jack's friend of mine is like the major bonus, but it's like Jack is doing international seminars. Like he's done the Philippines, Australia. Wow. He's got like several seminars coming up in Australia and New Zealand, like on in 2018. He's done all over the U.S. and like literally he's having lunch, doing privates with Hickson. Like, dude, he's directly plugged into like the what I would say is like one of the purest jiu-jitsu wellsprings that exist. Like I trained with Hickson, I was in the room just within the last 6 months, and I got to do 2 seminars, 4 hours with him, and it's the highest and purest level of jiu-jitsu for all people that I've ever seen. It's like it's impenetrable. They can't hit you, they can't scratch you, they can't bite you. That's the bonus side. It's like when he talks about self-defense, there's no hokey bullshit. Mm-hmm. He's talking about like, hey, see, when I add connection to my guard, you can't hit me.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm an anchor around your neck. You can't hit me in the groin. You can't elbow me. You can't punch me. And then I can do any of that to you, and then I'm just going to put you in this choke. Or whatever, you know, and it's like, it's just such a complete and concise system. I mean, I left there and I tested for my judo black belt shortly after that, my Shodan. And there were some things that I took away from both of those seminars that like completely changed my like.
I saw you using some of that in your video.
Yeah, dude, man, and I can't tell you. So that's me spending 4 hours with Hickson, and like when Jack was back, I think I've done like 8 seminars with Jack, and then just like a whole bunch of time on the side. Got to spend 6 total hours with him, just on the mats when he was here last time.
Now, did y'all ever go back and you discussed a little bit about the coral belt and the red belt because he got promoted while you were there?
That is true, yes. So,
but he had the coral belt on in the seminar.
Yes. So he gets promoted. I was actually his uke. It's like he was using me to show the technique when he was promoted, and I was just like, oh, well, what's going on? And then, like, all of these who's who jiu-jitsu walk in, Fabio Santos, Pedro Sauer, Jorge Gracie found ESC, like, all these people bust through the door. And Fabrizio Verdum's in there, Cobrinha's in there. I mean, there's tons of red belts in there, like people you don't even know that don't even speak English.
Uh-huh.
You know, Hoyler Gracie's there. And it was just like, they were there, they're like, Hickson, you know, you're the man. We're here to promote you to red belt. And he was just like, oh, I can't take this. I'm not old enough. I haven't been doing jiu-jitsu long enough. And then there was like a 20-minute period of like arguing about whether or not he was worthy enough of the belt. I mean, it was like, it was got almost to the point it was awkward. Then he accepted the belt, wore it. And that's, I think he wore it that day and the next day. But I would have to double check and see whether or not he wore it the next day, because I Facebook Lived it in my gym member group. Mm-hmm. But the seminar is on YouTube, and it came on after Robert and I, when we were reviewing it on my podcast, the videos he's talking about, the Martial Arts Industry Association Super Show. It's like a 20-minute video or something. It's one of the seminars that he taught. And it's also, I think you're in the member group. You can go find it if you search in our member group. Just type in Hickson, it should pop up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was that seminar, and I can't remember if he was wearing his red belt at that seminar or not. But if he was, I think that's the only 2 times he wore his red belt.
Wow.
So I mean, 58, and he that's it. Like from what I've heard, one of Hickson's goals is to unify all of jiu-jitsu under the same ranking structure. At least 6 main ranking structures for jiu-jitsu that are out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that there's more, and, you know, people doing their own thing.
That's kind of tough to do.
I don't really care about it. It's just like, but I do think it would make, I think things like unified ranking systems, unified weight classes, and things of that nature, cross sport, cross art, would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think that goes back.
Boxing
goes back kind of
kickboxing is 165.
Like the Japanese when you talk about. Are you still there?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. We talk about the Japanese, not really having contact with the outside world. Because I think martial arts was, more for battle for them, so they didn't share it with a whole lot of people, and that was just a way of life.
Yeah, I mean, it was a way of life. It was part of the religion in a sense. I mean, it was, just the whole Eastern way of life in general is very different than historically, especially until the Meiji Restoration is very different. It's especially with Japan being an island, that was one other thing that made it a little. It's like, I mean, really, it's situated in a similar way from like Japan, China is like England is with mainland Europe and France and Spain. I mean, but didn't receive the same sort of contact, and I mean, it was just. I'm fascinated by Japanese history. It's a topic. I hope I got to GA for that course, and my professor that I had for that course actually passed away. I had two professors that were mentors of mine pass away last year. So, fortunately, I got to work with them or have their notes or old tests and things that I can use and pass on through my teaching. So.
You did some boxing yesterday, right?
Yeah, Tim. He had a fight, completely annihilated this guy. Got hit a couple of times, got punched in the chest a couple of times. It kind of rattled him. We just got like a super solid like hook to the chest a couple of times. I guess I saw one of them happen in the video, but he handily defeated the guy. It was an awesome. It was just 60-second rounds, 3 of them. So it was a fast fight. Hot Springs. When did you see my Facebook status earlier?
Which one?
The one about the elderly person.
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay, let me.
I was going to ask you about that too.
I'll tell you, and let me precursor this. By that elderly person, probably whipped the shit out of everybody in that room. Like that elderly person, I would say it was wearing Ray Rogers. So, like, Ray Rogers has been doing amateur boxing for 70 years. He's president of Golden Gloves and Silver Gloves, and he was president of the LBC. But this guy has kind of ousted him somehow and took over. So, like, the boxing commission, or the LBC in Arkansas, is just a big fuck show right now. And the last 2 coaches' meetings have been just a total joke. So, like, so this guy is 88 years old, and I mean, I may be incorrect on his age. If I am, it's like plus or minus a year. Like he's in his late 80s. And this new guy is taking over. So like he's sitting in there next to his wife at this table, who's generous enough, even though they don't do that job anymore, to show up and like type the bout sheets up and stuff, and help with the administrative side of doing a show, because she's been the only person that's done it for years and 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 years.
Probably enjoys doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been doing boxing since 2013, and I've never seen him. We go to like that first season, we didn't hit a lot of shows, but since then we've gone to probably an average of 7 shows a season. Like I've done at least 7 shows this season. We're supposed to have our own show this season. I've never seen this guy one time that is now in charge of the boxing commission. He never shows up, and when he did, he didn't work as an official or anything. And it's just like, he was like, hey, so you need to get up. I need that chair. And I'm just like, dude, all politics and bullshit aside, like who in fuck tells an elderly person in the later 80s to get up?
Get up.
That is the most disrespectful shit. I was like, I want to beat this dude's ass right now. Like, I feel bad as a man today that I did not stand up for that situation when it happened.
Did he move?
Yeah.
He did?
He was just like, oh, okay. Like, because he, made it, said something, like, wasn't looking at him or anything, like, unpacking his suitcase or something. He's like, oh, I'm see. And then, ended up saying something this is a big, awkward thing, both the coaches' meetings I was mentioning. And I'm just like, dude, you, nobody, you're not making any friends out here. You're a joke. Like, no one is going to follow your leadership. You've already lost.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's just like the thing, like transitioning.
He could have stood up or grabbed another chair.
Well, that's it, man. I would stand up and do the thing, or I would pull a chair up to the side of the table where he was sitting, or whatever, before I would ever ask an 88-year-old person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just, man. I just, you know, when you live to be as that old and you're still giving back to boxing. I mean, this guy is like Mr. Boxing. Like, he's cornered and been cut man in every one of Jermaine Taylor's fights. He's done countless title fights as a cut man. I mean, he's just a part of boxing history. I would love to interview him for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, if I was close to the situation, you know, if I was sitting next to him, I'd got up and might take my chair.
You know, and I've wondered several times because, like, I mean, the guy that's run it for years, he's older, man. He's in his later 80s. I was like, well, what's going to happen when he's not around anymore? Doesn't do it anymore, retires or whatever. And it's like, it's just super unfortunate that this is the way that it went down, because I literally just got an email about it. It was like, oh, yeah, dude. And I'm just like, the IOC, the Olympics in general, which amateur USA boxing is sanctioned through IOC, is a straight line to the Olympics. It's the most corrupt bullshit ever. You know, like it's you know, if I want to have a show, and like the vast majority of boxing clubs are nonprofit, ours is. And, you know, it's super expensive to have a show.
Yeah.
Like, and it used to not be, as they said, I think like even 30 years ago, it was like $10 or something, or even cheaper. It's like almost $400 or something, like $360 just to get the sanction. Then, you know, you got to get officials and a referee and a doctor and a venue and clean up and sponsors and concessions, and, you know.
Yeah, it's not like what it used to be where people just kind of, you know, just got together.
It's a fundraiser for your nonprofit, you know. That's what you're trying to make it be, is just a fundraiser. It's something that works for everybody, that, you know, you pay all your debts back, you get sponsored, it's a positive event, you can put your own boxers into this positive thing for your gym. But it's like the way that it is in our region. And I mean, it's just like, I am all about, like, yeah, there needs to be positive changes made in this region, the Mid-South, for boxing, obviously. I don't think
probably just for everywhere.
Well, I would like to see it is, but I would like to see the Mid-South stack across the board, and particularly Arkansas, how they stack up to other regions in terms of who's produced. Because Arkansas has never produced an Olympic gold medalist, you know, and, you know, and other states haven't as well. But I wonder how many of those states are in the Mid-South without looking it up, because, you know, I mean, like Tim, my boxer I have at Fly last night, it's only his 8th fight, but I mean, he would fight every single weekend if he could. You know, if there was a fight available for him, he would. And you know, even with traveling, it's like as he gets on into deeper into the ranks, I'm going to start looking at taking him to peripheral Mid-South states, Louisiana. Texas has their shit together big time.
I don't know, what does he have to do to make an Olympic?
I don't know if that's what he wants to do. I mean, there's qualifiers you have to go through. You know, if you win like a national Golden Gloves, you're pretty much a shoe-in for that trajectory as well. But so there's some different paths you can take, and now, if I'm not mistaken, you can be a pro boxer and fight in the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. I remember that's a major buzz, and I think that's something that they passed like somewhat recently.
Keep Tyson up.
But man, the Olympics is style. Like if people hate on the IBJJF, the Olympics is stylized sport more. I mean, I know you have a Taekwondo black belt. I know that you run a Taekwondo program at your school. And I know that you've seen like the differences in probably the Taekwondo you're probably offering.
Versus the Olympics.
I mean, likewise for judo. I offer judo at my school, and sport judo in general, but Olympic judo for sure. And like all the rules, like, oh, you can't strip the grip in that way. Oh, you can't grab here for that long without doing this. Oh, you can't. It's like you can't touch the legs, you can't drop your knee to the mat. I mean, there's all these things where it's like, but man, the way that IBJJF has driven some of their rules, it's not a whole lot better. It's just highly stylized, a cool art. That's why, like, I've just been correcting people when they say they'll be talking about the art of jiu-jitsu, and they say the sport.
Yeah,
they refer to the art as the sport.
Yeah, and the art comes first before the sport.
It's a martial art, and it's a martial art with a super rich history and roots and lineage. And it's like, you know, every practitioner, I see all these practitioners and high levels and red belts and academies that have, you know, Elio, and then Maeda, and then Jigoro Kano. Well, that's the jiu-jitsu self-admission. They trace their roots to judo.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm fascinated by those historical connections. I tell this to people a lot. Racism in the United States in 1907 is largely what drove jiu-jitsu to Brazil. If I'm not mistaken, it was 1911 when Maeda immigrated to Brazil and is a part of a Japanese colony of people that were setting up there and immigrating there because of this little thing called the Gentleman's Agreement in 1907 between the United States and Japan, between Theodore Roosevelt and the Emperor, that they would stop immigrating to the United States, California, because everybody was being super racist. So, anyway. It's a little segue.
Yeah, I make a lot of references, and you know, when I'm teaching or jiu-jitsu, between self-defense and just the pure art, as opposed to sport. You know, because I say you can look at this as getting 2 points, or you can look at this as doing what you have to do to survive. You know, I make references and going to if you're attacking somebody, if you're submitting somebody, and you go into the bottom position, you better darn well know what you're doing if you're on the street to get it finished if you go to the bottom. But if you've been on the top, you should be able to escape. But, there's references like that in sport. You don't even think about escaping. There's no escape.
Dude, I mean, well, the biggest thing I feel like that sportsters, we'll call them sportsters. These sportster kids, sport jiu-jitsu hipsters, they, there's no defensive posture. There's no takedown. Like, I mean, there are people that compete in the IBJJF that are super legit with their takedowns. There are NCAA wrestlers that are in the IBJJF. There are people, but it's just like there is a gap there. I think that everybody would admit it's like there's a gap there. There's some people that do leg locks. There's some people that don't. There's some people that do takedowns. There's some people that don't. And then there's a lot of people that pull guard in the sport of jiu-jitsu. And I'm not saying that for me, tracing the roots, it's like a guard pull is a failed, what was called sacrifice throw in judo. A throw where I go down to the mat first. Those are actually frowned upon in judo. It's like, oh, you couldn't throw the dude for real? Like, you had to go, you had to do that?
Yeah.
And two, because of it's like, I think about things when I'm teaching, when I'm coaching, when I'm rolling, it's like a risk reward system. It's like, if I go down first and it doesn't work, that's not going to be.
Yeah, I don't have any shame if I can't take somebody down to just do what I can to get it to the ground. If it's sport or in class or something.
Pulling guard is my last resort.
Yeah.
If I run my system, it would be like this: I come out, we slap, we bump. There are no grips. From no grips, I am trying to initiate some sort of a clinch, inside ties, a circle, establish a lead leg or a base. Figure out how you're going to play, and I'm trying to wrestle at that point, essentially. If the grips or clinch happen, I try and go for a throw. If they don't pull guard, if they pull guard, I try to counter with a pass. And if it's still going and no one's done anything and I didn't get my takedown, I didn't get my throw, I'll pull guard.
Yeah, and it's weird when you watch a sub-only tournament and you see people battle for the takedown.
Do you see that double guard pull viral video? It was I saw it all over Facebook yesterday. It was like two. One of them was 10th Planet guy, and one of them was something else. They just like just boom, jumping scissors.
I think one was Nathan Orchard.
I think it was. Yeah,
I saw that. But they kind of done it right, because if you're in a sub only, you need to get it to the ground one way or the other.
They land in essentially a leg lock position. That's why like you can't reap and do a lateral pressure and things of that nature in the IBJJF, but you still see double guard pulls there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you see them evolve the sport into these weird directions, rule and point wise, because you can't do the leg locks.
Yeah.
And the IBJJF that you can in like no-gi or sub only or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, yeah, and some get particular over rule sets. And, you know, if you don't like the rule set, don't compete under the rule set. But I think different rule sets create more dynamics in jiu-jitsu and more creativity for people who compete within a certain rule set. Because if it was all the same, you know, you would always, I don't know, it seems like you would always progress at the same rate as far as strategy.
So, and I kind of hit on this earlier, and like this is just my viewpoint anymore. It's like I've competed a lot over the years. I'm not going to say I'm never going to compete again, but I haven't competed in a while, and I'm not planning on it anytime soon. But there's this model that I think it's mentioned in Mastering the Twister, and maybe the Ronda Rousey episode. I don't remember which episode. I know you watched that show, but Eddie Bravos, and I've heard people talking about this. And everybody's talking about these theoretical and conceptual models, and I teach my stuff around the same lines a lot of times. But that there's like this concept, and I mentioned it earlier, like I run through a sort of system, is there's types of grapplers or jiu-jitsu players out there that are like, they're specialists. You got guard pull, you got takedown artists, whether they have sick judo throws or that wrestling background we talked about a couple of times, or they're leg lockers. Yeah. Which could go hand in hand with any of that, you know. But I think that I've been in the bottle and along the line of thoughts for at least a couple of years with some of it, and then I've been doing judo for 8 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken, like quite a while. Yeah. But like I noticed a long time ago, I was like, okay, I know like 2 takedowns, and I suck at both of them, and they're both wrestling. It's single and double, and I should learn other things. So I started. And then there was a period of time where I was like, I didn't like guard pulling. I didn't like the idea of it, but I still learned and created and studied, and I feel like developed a little bit on my own and crossed over with all of that stuff. I'm doing a really good strategy on pulling guard. And how to approach that strategically. And because I mean, I'm like, and this is a JJGF sort of concept on how they do their rule set is to, if you pull, you better sweep or submit immediately. And that's the way the Mendez brothers play their guard pulls a lot of times. And like those watching Hoffa and Guy Mendez teach is where I got a lot of that from. It's like, well, I'm getting the grips I want to go to the guard I want to go to that guard to get these sweeps. And I would do it from the guard pull, and then I would be drilling those sweeps throughout the week, and then I would do the guard pull, the sweep. And it's like everything would be a big, long combination when I was doing sport. You know, a lot of times I would, you know, hey, I'm going to pull guard. I'm going to get De La Riva. From there, I'm going to do my A sweeps. I'm real big on A's and B's. Yeah. But so like and then I've been really trying to hammer down and broaden all of my understanding on leg locks. So like, I mean, I feel like I teach all submissions at the school. I probably teach fewer neck cranks than anything, but
yeah, me too.
I think that there is a way of doing this art that transcends the way that people perceive it. And that would be the way that Rickson Gracie does it. Like people can talk shit about what he has to say about sport or whatever, but it's like 99% of the people you're going to hear write their articles or run their mouth have been in the room. They haven't felt it. They haven't done jiu-jitsu with people that can make them feel that. Yeah. That sort of pressure, that sort of connection, that level. Yeah, I mean, it is like I explain to people but he has ways of explaining it to you so you can understand it. I have this concept called the middle. So imagine if you're pushing me backwards and I lean forward, you don't see anything happen. You know, so like that's why even trained eyes, it's like in that moment they're like on the base level. It's like you're standing up, you're pushing my chest. I'm leaning forward. You don't see anything happen. If I lean into you the same level as you push me back, right? and they're just like these, like the way that they do posture and guard. And I say they because, man, I'm pulling my sources from Jack and from Hickson and from Henry Akins and what I've seen Crone do. And it's just like their interpretation of this art, their wellspring is different. And I mean, besides, in the Hickson seminar, he's like, hey, cover that up, and just hits this dude right in the dick. And I was just like, yes, but like, I mean, that was it. Like every guard, can you scratch me? Can you hit me in the dick? Can you punch me with an overhand? No, you can't do anything. Now it starts.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's been lost and watered down. I mean, and people that haven't been taken the journey to the Mecca, I have stood on the hill, like there's no higher version of what we're talking about that's out there. And I've got to train with some legit people over the years, and I've always wanted to train with Hickson, and it won't be the only time I trained with him. He was gone for the vast majority of the time I was doing jiu-jitsu. He was not even in the United States.
Who's that?
So, Hickson.
Oh, okay.
He just was gone for like 10 years.
Yeah. Off studying, more likely.
Well, it's like I don't know. He went back to Brazil after he had an issue, like, or an incident where his son passed away, and he just like gave Crone his black belt and went off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and like a lot of his guys that trained with him ended up going to like Jean Jacques or just different places, or just stopped training or stopped ranking, or like there were a select few people that stayed in touch with him over the years, but he did very minimal amount of anything during that time and came back more Yoda than when he left.
Yeah.
The dude is Yoda. I mean, it's even like I'm big on Henzo too. I'm a big Henzo fan. I mean, Henzo produced John Danaher. John Danaher co-authored Henzo Gracie's book, Mastering Jiu-Jitsu. I've got that book, but it's still. I've met Henzo several times. I haven't got to do jiu-jitsu with him and train, but like I've done like I forget where all, like I think all 3 times were in Vegas. As a matter of fact, I know they were. But I haven't got to be on the mats with them. But I have been on the mats with a lot of people that are super legit jiu-jitsu black belts from, a lot of Brazilians too.
A lot of history.
Yeah, and there's nothing like training with Hickson. I mean, I can't say it enough. Like, because I feel like he gets a lot of negative. Like, I feel like people talk shit about what he has to say a lot. And I'm not defending everything he has to say, but like I get what he's saying for the reasons like we're talking about with the sport.
Yeah, I think some just a gap in communication as far as, he comes from an older school of martial arts, and, if you're 18, 20, your point of view is probably different, and you've probably, your reference was probably different than Gracie.
If you want to hear some stories about Hickson destroying some of your favorite jiu-jitsu black belt heroes, just listen to the Jack Toffer episode on Life Unraveled podcast. Because that's the thing. It's like, I would say Hickson's jiu-jitsu is more of an MMA style, self-defense style, but it will still work in sport. And I think people kind of like downplay that or something. I don't know, but I'm like, no, it'll totally, I mean, it works. It's different. It works for these reasons. And Daniel O'Brien's another great representative. I mean, he's not a direct Hickson guy, but Johnny Lee Smith's one of those guys that has had a lot of time in with Hickson. And most of it, I believe, being before Hickson went back to Brazil, like I was talking about. But Daniel O'Brien is doing that Hickson Gracie style jiu-jitsu.
Did you see the movie Black Panther yet?
No, dude, but I super want to. One of my private lessons had to cancel with me Friday because they're like, dude, I forgot it's out. And I text them and I'm like, somebody said it was the greatest Marvel movie they'd ever seen on my Facebook. Is this true? And he said, all he said was that Michael B. Jordan plays a good bad guy.
It was, I don't know. I've seen different Marvel movies and I like some superheroes, selectively here and there, but the movie takes you in different places than your average movie does. And I'm like, man, I can't believe they're doing this. And there's some jujitsu in the movie. I won't spoil it for you, but if you had seen it, we were going to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to go see it. Or at least I want to. I'm going to try. If not, I'll see when it comes out on digital. But
you'll enjoy some.
I
You'll enjoy some of the early fight scenes.
What's that?
I said you'll enjoy some of the early fight scenes in the movie. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I bet. I
don't want to ruin it.
Some clips of like them doing like fight choreography and stuff, and it looked pretty action packed.
Oh yeah, it's pretty good. All right, probably gonna wrap it up here. We'll be probably going about an hour. You got anything coming up that you want to plug or talk about, or?
Not a whole lot. We're training for some fights and stuff around the corner, with just people in the gym. Got boxers competing, and got a kickboxing fight and a couple MMA fights coming up. My wife's fighting soon. I've got a plethora of people scheduled as guests on my podcast. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe to Laugh Unravel Podcast on YouTube. I'm on Stitcher. I'm on iTunes podcast app. That just comes standard on all your iPhones, so don't delete that app. Open it up, type in Laugh Unravel Podcast, hit subscribe. Hit subscribe on YouTube and try to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Also, I was previously putting all my content on a member site, like all my videos. And I'm actually migrating all of that content over to my gym's YouTube. So if you look up Forca, Forca, Martial Arts and Fitness Russellville, I'm uploading videos almost daily there. So you can subscribe to that channel as well. We're trying to hit 100 podcast episodes, 100 vlogs, and I haven't started the vlog yet, so a lot of work to go, and 1,000 subscribers on each channel for YouTube in 2018. So if you can help us reach that goal, that'd be great.
Great. I appreciate you talking to me today.
Hey, thanks, brother, so much. I appreciate it too.